An amoeba engulfs the bacteria by closing around it in a process known as phagocytosis. The bacteria are now trapped in a vacuole. Lysosomes surround the vacuole and use their hydrolytic enzymes to digest the bacteria. The soluble substances released by digestion of the bacteria are absorbed into the cytoplasm. Fish obtain oxygen from water. The oxygen is circulated to different parts of the body. A fish's heart has two chambers, one atrium and one ventricle. The deoxygenated blood goes from the ventricle to the gills, where carbon dioxide in the blood is exchanged for oxygen in the water. The oxygenated blood then passes from the gills through the main artery to different parts of the body. The deoxygenated blood is collected by a main vein and brought back to the heart. The circulatory system in man is necessary to transport substances from one part of the body to another. Food, oxygen, and hormones have to reach each and every cell of the body, while unwanted waste must be expelled. The heart is the main organ in the circulatory system, which pumps blood to the various parts of the body. The left atrium fills with oxygenated blood from the lungs carried by the pulmonary vein. Simultaneously, the right atrium fills with deoxygenated blood from the body brought by the vena cava. Blood enters the ventricles from the atria. The aorta takes oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the different parts of the body. Deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle enters the pulmonary artery to be carried to the lungs for purification. Deoxygenated blood from the different parts of the body is collected by the vena cava and brought back to the heart. Blood is a transporting medium in man and is made up of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. The red blood cells contain hemoglobin, which carries oxygen to various parts of the body. White blood cells protect the body from disease-causing organisms, and platelets help in blood clotting. The lungs are the organs of respiration, and as you can see, they are located in the thoracic cavity. Humans have a pair of lungs. The lungs are protected by the rib cage. In gaseous exchange, air first enters through the nostrils and moves into the pharynx. Air continues passing from the pharynx to the voice box or larynx, reaching the trachea or windpipe, which is supported by C-shaped rings of cartilage. These rings ensure that the trachea is always kept open. The trachea splits into two tubes called bronchi. Each singular tube is called a bronchus. Each bronchus enters into a lung. Within the lungs, bronchi divide into a number of fine branches called bronchioles. The bronchioles split further and end in small clusters of air sacs called alveoli. This is where gaseous exchange occurs. During inspiration, air is taken into the lungs as the dome-shaped diaphragm contracts and moves downward, while the rib cage moves upwards and outwards. This increases the volume of the thoracic cavity and decreases the air pressure, causing air to move inwards. Expiration is the process of expelling air from the lungs. In expiration, the diaphragm relaxes and returns to its normal dome-shaped structure, while the rib cage moves inwards to its normal position. This causes the volume of the thoracic cavity to decrease and the air pressure to increase, expelling air as a result. Air sacs or alveoli are richly supplied with blood vessels, and it is here that gaseous exchange occurs. Oxygen from the air sacs diffuses into the red blood cells. Carbon dioxide diffuses in the opposite direction to the alveoli and is expelled from the lungs during expiration. Human sperm are introduced into the body of the female during sexual intercourse. They swim with the help of their tails, making their way through the vagina, cervix, uterus, and into the oviduct. Sperm have to travel a long distance to reach the egg in the oviduct. Many of them never reach at all. Out of millions of sperm ejaculated, only one sperm enters the egg. The acrosomal cap contains enzymes which help in its penetration. Only the head enters while the tail is left behind. Now the nucleus of the sperm fuses with the nucleus of the egg. This is fertilization. An embryo's life support system is the placenta. The portion of the embryo implanted into the uterine wall develops into the placenta with finger-like projection called villi. The placenta is joined to the embryo by the umbilical cord. Inside the cord is an artery and a vein. Oxygen and food materials in the mother's blood diffuse across the placenta into the umbilical vein and are carried to the fetus, while carbon dioxide and waste diffuse in the opposite direction through the umbilical artery and the placenta into the mother's blood. The human body is made up of cells. Each cell contains a dense controlling body in the center of the cell called a nucleus. Chromosomes are seen as thread-like structures in the nucleus of a cell. Each chromosome is made up of 2 chromatids. A chromosome consists of coiled DNA combined with proteins. DNA is made up of genes. We inherit genes from our parents, and these genes carry the information which determines all inherited traits, such as skin color, eye color, hair color, etc. Water plants such as Eichhornia have a rosette of pale green, shiny, rounded leaves and balloon-like petioles swollen with spongy tissue that keep the plants afloat. These plants are weak-stemmed and hence need a support. They produce spring-like structures called tendrils that help them to climb on to the support. This is a sensitive plant. When you touch the plant, the leaflets close immediately. A typical leaf consists of a broad leaf blade or lamina attached to the stem by a leaf stalk or petiole. A cross-section shows that the upper epidermis is made up of a single layer of cells covered by a cuticle. This mesophyll tissue consists of closely packed palisade tissue and loosely packed spongy tissue with large intracellular spaces. These cells contain numerous chloroplasts. The lower epidermis contains stomata. The vascular bundles contain water-containing xylem and food-conducting phlegm tissue. A plant cell shows the presence of the following structures: outer cellulose cell wall, which is totally permeable. Cell membrane is selective in nature. A large vacuole is present containing cell sap. A nucleus controlling the activities of the cell. Green chloroplasts occurring in the cytoplasm, performing photosynthesis. Chloroplasts contain the green pigment chlorophyll and are the site of photosynthesis. Chlorophyll absorbs and transforms light energy to chemical energy used in the manufacture of sugars. The chloroplast is bound by a double membrane. The aqueous inside compartment is called the stroma and contains flattened, disc-like membranes called thylakoid. Each stack of thylakoids is called a grana. Pollination is the process by which pollen grains are transferred from the anther to the stigma of a flower. Pollen grains are received by the stigma of a flower. A single pollen forms a pollen tube through the style. Through this, the generative nucleus makes its way toward the ovule. The generative nucleus divides into 2. One of these fuses with the egg cell and the other with the 2 polar nuclei, causing double fertilization. Wind-dispersed fruits such as sycamore have wings to carry them far and wide. Animals help in the dispersal of fruits and seeds as well. Birds such as this crow eat the fruit from a neem tree. They fly away some distance. The seeds pass undigested through the intestine and are deposited along with their droppings in a new area. These seeds germinate and have a greater chance to survive and grow into seedlings. Before germination, a seed is said to be in a dormant state. When the seed begins to germinate, it imbibes water from the soil. The water enters the seed through the micropyle. The water triggers the hydrolytic enzymes in the seed to convert starch into glucose. This provides the energy for growth. The enzyme amylase in the seed is activated. Amylase breaks down the stored starch molecules to maltose. The maltose is further broken down to glucose. The glucose molecules diffuse into the embryo, radicle and plumule of the seed. The cotyledons also emerge from the soil surface along with the plumule. The radicle emerges from the testa and grows downwards into the soil and helps in anchorage. The plumule develops into the shoot system, forming the first leaves. When the leaves are formed, the cotyledons wither away. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria, rhizobium, live in the root nodules of leguminous plants such as peas and beans in a symbiotic relationship. These bacteria absorb atmospheric nitrogen, converting it into nitrates and fixing it into the root nodules. Free-living bacteria in the soil fix atmospheric nitrogen as well. Atmospheric oxygen and nitrogen combine to form nitric and nitric oxides during lightning, which dissolve in the rainwater to form acids, which combine with minerals to form nitrates. Plants are eaten by animals. Animals die and the remains are acted upon by decomposers to release ammonia. This process is known as ammonification. This ammonia is converted into nitrites and nitrates by the bacteria Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter. This process is called nitrification. Denitrifying bacteria reduce nitrates to nitrites, ammonia, nitrogen, and oxygen. The nitrogen is released back into the atmosphere. This process is called denitrification.